The descent of Will Spencer into a chasm of absolute despair has been a tragic, agonizing spectacle to behold over the recent episodes. Following his brutal, visceral banishment from the Forrester mansion by the unyielding patriarch Eric Forrester, Will has found himself adrift in a dangerous sea of alcohol and unchecked, simmering rage. The once promising, bright heir to the formidable Spencer dynasty has been rapidly reduced to a fractured shadow of his former self, wandering the neon-lit, unforgiving streets of Los Angeles in a self-destructive, drunken stupor. His heart completely shattered by the cold rejection of Electra Forrester, who stood by in deafening silence as her family ruthlessly discarded him, bleeds opally for all to see. The alcohol serves to numb the immediate, piercing sting of her betrayal, but it simultaneously fuels a highly volatile fire within him, a fire that threatens to consume whatever remains of his shattered identity and reputation. The dark echoes of recent violence still reverberate loudly through the pristine corridors of both the Spencer and Forrester estates, casting a long, inescapable shadow over Will's future. The physical altercation at the beach house, where Will repeatedly and mercilessly punched R.J. Forrester in the face, was not merely a primal brawl over a woman's affections. It was the explosive, inevitable culmination of weeks of unbearable psychological pressure. Will had been forced by his own mother to carry the crushing weight of Logan's corporate secrets, hiding the truth about Hope Logan's defection and the rival jewelry line from the woman he loved most. When that psychological pressure cooker finally detonated, it left RJ battered and bruised, but more importantly, it left Will's personal and professional reputation in absolute ruins. The violence was a desperate scream from a young man who felt entirely cornered by the machinations of the adults around him. Yet it only serves to validate Ridge Forrester's hypocritical narrative that Will is a dangerous, unhinged threat to their safety. From the towering, glass-encased heights of Spencer Publications, Bill Spencer has been watching his son's tragic downward spiral with a potent, terrifying mixture of paternal concern and growing, icy disgust. Bill is a man who intimately understands the nature of anger and violence he recently engaged in a physical brawl with Ridge Forrester himself, proudly bearing the bruises on his face as a testament to his ruthless defense of the Spencer name. However, in Bill's calculating eyes, there is a distinct, unforgivable difference between dominant, strategic aggression and a sloppy, public loss of emotional control. Witnessing his son drown his sorrows in cheap liquor, engaging in highly destructive public behavior, and allowing the Forrester family to dictate his emotional state is a fundamental violation of the unwritten Spencer Code. Bill perceives Will's current emotional vulnerability not as a desperate cry for help, but as a glaring, unacceptable weakness that actively threatens the formidable reputation of the entire Spencer empire. To truly understand Bill Spencer's impending, draconian actions, one must first understand the absolute sanctity of the Spencer legacy in his mind. The iconic sword necklace that rests heavily against Bill's chest is not merely a piece of decorative jewelry. It is a profound symbol of ruthless ambition, unwavering strength, and the uncompromising demand for absolute victory in all arenas of life. Bill has spent his entire adult life meticulously building a corporate empire that strikes genuine fear into the hearts of his competitors, and he cannot, under any circumstances, allow his own flesh and blood to become a public liability. The corporate war with Forrester Creations is currently at a critical, fever-pitched climax following the wildly successful, industry-shaking launch of the Hope by Logan brand. Bill desperately needs his family to be an impenetrable fortress, a united front of apex predators ready to strike. A drunken, heartbroken, and publicly humiliated Will represents a massive crack in that fortress, a vulnerability that Ridge and Eric Forrester would gladly and ruthlessly exploit. The inevitable, earth-shattering confrontation between father and son finally takes place in the cavernous, intimidating main office of Spencer Publications, a room specifically designed to make ordinary men feel small and insignificant. Will stands before his powerful father, his eyes bloodshot and heavy, his posture defensive, reeking of stale alcohol and profound, soul-crushing defeat. He fully expects a stern lecture, perhaps a strategic reprimand, or even a twisted form of paternal comfort from the man who had previously advised him to never give up on his love for Electra. Instead, he is met with a gaze as cold, sharp, and unforgiving as a brutal winter storm. Bill does not offer a comforting embrace or a shoulder to cry on. He offers a calculated, devastating assessment of Will's recent, catastrophic failures. The air in the room grows thick and suffocating as Bill systematically dismantles Will's actions, stripping away any lingering illusions of sympathy, understanding, or paternal leniency. It is in this precise moment of absolute, heartbreaking vulnerability that Bill Spencer drops a psychological anvil on his son, employing extreme, unprecedented measures to salvage the family's currently tarnished reputation. With a voice completely devoid of any warmth or hesitation, Bill issues a harsh, non-negotiable decree. Will is to pack his bags and leave Los Angeles immediately. He is being forcibly exiled to the Middle East, tasked with running a remote, highly challenging, and isolated branch of the global Spencer empire. This is explicitly not a promotion or a career-building opportunity. It is a deliberate, punitive banishment. It is a harsh, isolating punishment specifically designed to remove Will from the toxic, dramatic epicenter of the Forrester-Logan Spencer corporate war and force him into a brutal crucible of isolation and intense corporate responsibility. The sheer magnitude of the command leaves Will momentarily paralyzed, the heavy words echoing in his mind like a death knell to his entire life in California. Bill does not stop at the mere geographical relocation. He attaches a brutal, life-altering condition to this forced, sudden exile. He looks his broken, trembling son dead in the eye and declares with absolute finality that this remote assignment is Will's absolute last chance to prove his mettle, to demonstrate that he truly possesses the ruthless Spencer DNA required to survive and thrive in their cutthroat world. If Will fails in the Middle East, if he continues to wallow in pathetic self-pity, or if he outright refuses to board the private plane waiting for him, he will be permanently and irrevocably stripped of his birthright. He will be completely disowned, permanently cut off from the vast Spencer fortune, and entirely erased from the legacy Bill has fought so relentlessly to build. It is a staggering, breathtaking ultimatum, a cruel choice between total submission to his father's tyrannical will or total financial, social, and familial annihilation. The shocking news of this cruel, sudden exile strikes Katie Logan with the devastating force of a physical blow, plunging her instantly into an abyss of profound maternal agony. Katie has already been drowning in a dark sea of immense guilt, having recently realized that her own relentless demands for corporate secrecy regarding the Hope by Logan launch were the initial, fatal catalyst for Will's tragic downfall. She had forced her son to lie to the woman he loved, breaking his spirit and his relationship for the sake of a successful fashion show. Now, she is forced to watch helplessly as her ex-husband delivers the final, crushing psychological blow to their child. The agonizing pain of seeing her son so profoundly broken, coupled with the terrifying reality of him being shipped off to the other side of the world under threat of disinheritance, shatters Katie's heart into a million irreparable pieces. Katie desperately attempts to intervene, confronting Bill with a fierce, tearful, and protective maternal rage that echoes through the halls of the Spencer building. She begs him to reconsider this drastic course of action, arguing passionately that Will needs professional help, deep compassion, and the unwavering support of his family to navigate this incredibly dark period, not a punitive, isolating exile to a foreign desert. She pointedly highlights the glaring, undeniable hypocrisy of Bill, a man who has made countless catastrophic, destructive, and violent mistakes in the name of love and anger throughout his life, punishing their son so mercilessly for doing the exact same thing. But Bill remains an impenetrable, unyielding wall of stone against her tears. He coldly dismisses Katie's emotional pleas as the very maternal coddling that made Will weak and vulnerable in the first place. In Bill's twisted, hyper-pragmatic worldview, this brutal tough love is the only remaining method to forge Will into a hardened weapon capable of surviving the corporate and personal wars to come. For Will, the crushing realization that his own father is callously casting him aside is the ultimate, soul-destroying betrayal. He is currently standing at the absolute lowest, most agonizing precipice of his young life. He has permanently lost the woman he loves. He has been publicly and humiliatingly banished by the family he desperately tried to integrate into, and his mental health is rapidly deteriorating into a dangerous abyss. In this moment of profound, desperate need, he looked to his father, the man who had just assured him that the Spencers never lose, for a vital lifeline. Instead, Bill handed him a heavy anchor and threw him directly into the darkest depths of the ocean. The severe psychological trauma of being discarded and threatened by his own father when he is already bleeding profusely from the deep wounds inflicted by the Foresters is a catastrophic blow from which Will may never truly recover. As the initial, paralyzing shock begins to wear off, a dark, cynical, and chilling clarity begins to take firm root in Will's intoxicated, racing mind. He begins to meticulously analyze the staggering, unbelievable hypocrisy of the powerful patriarchs who rule his chaotic world. Ridge Forrester, a man with a highly publicized history of endless marriages, bitter divorces, and impulsive, unjustified violence, had the sheer audacity to label Will a dangerous threat to his family. Bill Spencer, a man who literally blew up a building with people inside and recently engaged in a bloody fistfight in a corporate office, is now exiling his own son for a temporary lack of emotional control. Will realizes with sickening clarity that the standard rules of morality, ethics, and acceptable behavior simply do not apply to the aging kings of Los Angeles. They only apply to the disposable pawns. And in this transformative moment, Will realizes that he has been nothing more than a highly disposable pawn in their endless, petty, and destructive games of power and ego. The physical act of his departure from Los Angeles is a grim, desolate, and hauntingly quiet affair. There are no tearful, cinematic goodbyes at the airport, no lingering embraces of reconciliation with his parents, and no final, desperate pleas for forgiveness from Elektra. Will packs his belongings in a state of numb, mechanical detachment, his face an unreadable mask of stone. The sprawling, sun-drenched metropolis of Los Angeles, with all its glittering, empty promises and devastating, life-altering lies, slowly fades into the rear-view mirror as the sleek, black Spencertown car carries him toward the private airstrip. The physical, geographical distance between him and the life he knew is expanding rapidly by the minute, but it is the vast emotional chasm that is truly insurmountable. He is leaving behind the lingering ghost of his love for Elektra, the shattered remnants of his promising career, and the naive, hopeful boy who once foolishly believed in the inherent goodness of his family. It is during this long, solitary, and silent flight across the globe that the profound, terrifying transformation of Will Spencer truly begins to take shape. The overwhelming, suffocating sadness that had driven him to the bottom of a liquor bottle slowly begins to evaporate in the pressurized cabin, replaced by something far more resilient, far more calculating, and far more dangerous. The tears completely dry up, leaving behind a cold, hardened, and unbreakable resolve in his eyes. The immense pain of rejection and betrayal undergoes a dark, internal alchemy, mutating and twisting into a deep, simmering, and highly focused hatred. The boy who desperately sought the approval of Eric Forrester and the unconditional love of his father is officially dead, killed by the very men he tried so hard to please. In his place, a new, formidable entity is being forged in the scorching fires of his forced exile. As Will looks out over the endless, empty expanse of clouds from his window seat, he begins to meticulously categorize his enemies, and the Forrester family sits squarely and permanently at the top of his hit list. He harbors a venomous, unquenchable resentment toward Eric Forrester for his cruel, highly public banishment, viewing the aging patriarch as a hypocritical, out-of-touch tyrant who destroyed his life on a whim. He deeply despises Ridge Forrester for his relentless interference, his arrogant, controlling ultimatums, and his blatant, infuriating double standards regarding violence. He holds a special, burning, and personal hatred for R.J. Forrester, the opportunistic, manipulative rival who capitalized on Will's tragic downfall to claim Elektra for himself. And then there is Elektra herself, the woman who promised him forever, but cowardly abandoned him at the very first sign of genuine, messy conflict. Will silently vows that the entire Forrester family will eventually pay a steep, devastating price for the humiliation they have inflicted upon him. However, the most profound, dangerous, and deeply rooted hatred is reserved exclusively for his own blood. Will's resentment toward Bill Spencer is a dark, festering, and incurable wound that will never heal. He realizes with absolute certainty that his father does not view him as a son to be loved and nurtured, but merely as a corporate asset to be managed. A piece of heavy machinery that can be relocated, repurposed, or discarded the moment it malfunctions or threatens the bottom line. Bill's ruthless ultimatum perform in the desert or be entirely disowned has permanently severed the sacred familial bond, replacing it with a cold, highly transactional, and bitter enmity. Will accepts the grueling challenge, not to win back his father's elusive love, but to amass the incredible power, wealth, and influence necessary to one day return and systematically dismantle the very empire Bill holds so dear. The legendary Spencer sword will absolutely be wielded again, but this time, its sharpest edge will be aimed directly at the Patriarch's heart. The remote, isolated branch in the Middle East will certainly not be a place of quiet reflection or peaceful healing for Will Spencer. It will be a brutal, unforgiving, and highly demanding crucible. The harsh, searing desert landscape and the intense, high-stakes, multi-million-dollar corporate environment will serve as the absolute perfect training ground for his dark, inevitable evolution. Stripped entirely of his comfortable Los Angeles safety net and the privileges of his name, Will be forced to rely solely on his sharp intellect, his cunning instincts, and his newly discovered, terrifying ruthlessness. He will quickly learn to navigate treacherous, high-level business deals, manipulate powerful adversaries, and command absolute respect through a combination of fear and undeniable competence. Every single success he achieves in this harsh exile will not be a step toward familial redemption, but a solid brick in the foundation of his impending, catastrophic revenge.